Now to the latest in the murder case involving the singer known as David.
A preliminary hearing is in its fourth day to determine whether there is enough evidence to put him on trial for the death of a teenage girl. The musician, whose full name is David Anthony Burke, is accused of killing 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez and dismembering her body last year. Today, the medical examiner who performed the autopsy on Rivas Hernandez is testifying.
Burke faces several charges, including murder. He has pleaded not guilty. NBC's Camila Bernal is following this one closely for us. We're also joined by NBC News legal analyst Kristen Gibbons-Fedden. Camila, the medical examiner took the stand briefly yesterday, back on the stand today. What are we hearing from him, and who else is expected to testify in this days-long hearing?
Hey, Kate and Ellison. So the medical examiner just got off the stand. They're currently in a lunch break. And I do want to say that some of these details are very graphic because they discussed the state of the body, which had been decomposing. And the medical examiner even saying he couldn't even tell how long that body essentially, or he couldn't tell when she was killed because of the state that the body was in. He talked about the dismemberment of the body, the way that the cuts weren't even, essentially saying that he believed that the legs were cut at different times. He also talked about the cause of death, and he says he can't rule out Celeste Rivas Hernandez being shot. He also talked about the fact that they believe that she was stabbed before she was killed. And so we're getting a little bit more details in terms of what they believe happened. But in cross-examination, the defense then went on to question the Emmy in terms of, do you know for sure who was holding the knife, or the instrument, she called it. So essentially, she's implying that maybe Celeste Rivas Hernandez committed suicide, or that somehow it was her who killed herself, which, again, that is not what the prosecution believes here. And we are expecting one more detective to take the stand. He's expected to talk about child pornography. So we'll see how this all develops.
Camila, thank you. Kristen, let's bring you in here and pick up on kind of where Camila left off there, because ultimately one of the ways the estimated time of death was determined in this case was with cell phone activity, right? When you have listened to what the defense has said and some of the positions that they're taking here, what do you expect to have happen next, and what do you think their strategy is going to be?
I think that their strategy really, because keep in mind, all they have to do is poke one hole, create reasonable doubt. And at this level, at the preliminary hearing level, there's no question in my mind that this will go ahead and be sent forward for trial. But what they're trying to do is poke holes both from the public standpoint, because he is a public figure, but then also from creating doubt in the minds of any potential juror who could be picked. This line of questioning that Camila was talking about outlines some of the vulnerabilities in the case. They don't know what the murder weapon actually was. That is a huge vulnerability. I do think that there is some reasonable doubt with regard to, well, then who was it that killed her? But again, I think one of the things that is really, really, really scary about this case is dismemberment. And so because of the cell phone activity, there is a lot of GPS activity as well, electronic data that is going to, I think, fill the holes that will allow the prosecution's case to be strengthened.
Kristen, what more have we learned about the relationship between Burke and Celeste Rivas Hernandez since this all started?
A lot of things, and Ellison and I had talked about this on allegedly, one of the things is they didn't have a relationship as we know it from, the colloquial sense. They had an inappropriate interaction that I would say, based on the allegations, that was facilitated by predatory grooming. What we know from the facts is that, he claimed that he didn't know her true age, but the body cam footage from the earlier days in the preliminary hearing testimony made very clear he knew her age, at least at the point where the police came to his house looking for her. And yet the allegation is that he continued the relationship. And so that all of that actually forms the basis of one of the counts that he's actually standing accused of, and that's the sexual abuse.
Kristen Gibbons-Fedden, thank you so much. And by the way, Kristen referenced this. If you want more insight on David's case and other true crime cases making headlines, check out Ellison's video podcast. It's called Allegedly with Ellison Barber, streaming on Netflix.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.